Take a minute this evening to talk to you about somebody that had a huge influence on my life when I was young. My casino career started in 1996 in Rising Sun, Indiana. Now, we opened the casino, Grand Victoria Casino and Resort by Hyatt, and we were the first casino in the state of Indiana. So when this opened, there were no dealers in the area, right? So if you open a casino in Atlantic City, there's 200 dealers that are standing there waiting for a job. This is not the case in Indiana. So they imported a bunch of instructors from all over the gaming industry and all over the world for that matter. And I, along with 1,200 other people, showed up to take a blackjack class. So I wanted to learn how to do blackjack. I was 20 years old. And my instructor was a gentleman by the name of Randy Pierce. Now Randy Pierce had been in the casino industry for 42 years. In 1996. He opened the Sands, he opened the Tropicana, and worked at the Riviera. So for those of you that are familiar with any of those old gangster movies, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So we were about 3 weeks into our blackjack class when the movie Casino came out, right? So for those of you that have not seen this movie, it's Joe Pesci, it's Sharon Stone. It does not paint the casino world in a positive light. There's lots of murder and theft, and it's awful, right? It's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but it certainly paints the casino business in a pretty bad light. So we all go see this movie that are in this blackjack class. We all go see this movie. And of course we come out of this and we're like, our eyes are as big as plates, like what the hell did we just sign up for? I have no idea. So we go into class Monday morning, or Monday night, and we said to Randy, did you see this movie? He says, yeah. And the movie starts with a car bomb at the middle, at the beginning of the movie. And we said, Randy, how accurate was this movie? Because we knew that he had been there. And he said, well, you remember the car bomb at the beginning of the movie? I said, yeah. He says, well, the casino in the background of that image is where I worked. And when that bomb blew up, it knocked the chips off my roulette table. Wow. Like, that's who this guy was, right? Randy Pierce had dealt single-deck blackjack for 18 years in Las Vegas at that time. And he was my blackjack teacher, okay? So, classic Western guy. 6'3", perfect gray hair that was combed perfectly every day, Western suits. This is Randy. So I get the job, thankfully. About 6 months in, 8 months in, my buddy and I are getting off work. It's like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's January. And my buddy that I was riding back and forth to work with had a flat tire. 2 o'clock in the morning, this is 1996. None of us had cell phones or anything, or you can call anybody. And we're in Rising Sun, Indiana, which is like an hour away from Cincinnati, right? So we're screwing around with this thing. Neither of us know how to work the jack that comes with the thing. So Randy pulls up, and of course, what does Randy drive? A massive Cadillac Eldorado. Right? Of course, this is what this guy drives, right? So he pulls up, and he calls everybody babe. He says, hey, babe, so what seems to be the problem? Well, we got a flat, Randy. He says, okay. He says, you got a jack? I said, well, sort of, but we think it's broken. So I got a jack. And he pops the trunk. So I walk around to the back of his car, and of course, if you've ever seen a Cadillac Eldorado, the trunk is massive, right? So I open the trunk, and sure enough, there's a full-size jack. Not like one of the crank jacks, like a full jack in the back of this car. But there's also a shovel and pickaxe. What the hell is this? So he gets out of his car, and he comes around, and I said, Randy, what's with the shovel and pickaxe? He says, mind your business, babe. He closes the trunk lid, and I never said another word about it. He helps us change the tire, and we get on our way. So as we're working with Randy, Randy's the kind of guy that if you need the day off to go to your kid's baseball game, or something's wrong, or whatever, he cares about every single person that's on his team. Okay? The key word there being on his team. So if you came into his casino from outside, or if you betrayed the trust that's been instilled in you, because we're moving a lot of money, we're moving it really fast, he would absolutely burn you down. Okay? So, about 3 years into working at Grand Victoria, I learned to be a craps dealer. Okay? And I've been dealing craps for about 3 months. Dealing craps is very, very difficult, and it takes a lot of skill, a lot of practice to get good at it. And about 3 months in, you know now how not to drool on yourself while you're standing at the table, right? This is about all you know. And I come up to a table. Now, a craps table has 4 positions. There's stick, second, third, and the guy on break, right? And you work 20 minutes in each spot, and you rotate around, and you go on break, you come back to stick, you go to second, you go to third, you go to break, rinse, repeat for the rest of your shift, right? Pretty simple. So I come to stick, And there's a guy on second base that I'd seen a couple of times before, but I'd not really worked with him very much. And he's standing there, and he's doing his thing. It's a pretty heavy game. There's a lot of black chips, which are $100 chips, purple chips, orange chips even in play, which are $1,000 chips. It's a pretty heavy game. And I'm freaking out, right? Because I'm only 3 months into the gig, so I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing, but there's lots of chips moving around. So I get on stick, and I do my thing, and everything's okay. And I notice that Randy is standing behind the table, which is a little weird, because he's the casino manager. He normally roves around. But he's just standing there. And I think he's watching me, so I'm sweating bullets, right? So I go to second, and when I get to tap this guy out after my 20 minutes on stick, I go to tap this guy out. Randy says, skip him, which is weird, right? Normally he's interrupted the flow, not a big deal. Casino, you get an order, particularly from a guy like Randy, you move, right? So I go to third, I do my 20 minutes, I don't think anything about it. I go on break, I come back to stick, this dude is still on second, still standing there. And I go to stick, and I realize that this guy's still there, and he's not talking, which is also very weird, because craps dealers talk a mile a minute, right? So I go to second, skip it. I go to third, I go to break, I come back to stick, dude's still standing there. I go to second, and as I'm standing behind him, Randy turns to this guy, and he says, have you had enough? And the guy shakes his head. And he says, fine. And he puts his hand out, and the guy spits 2 black chips, $100 chips into his hand. He'd left him standing on base for 2.5 hours. The color of his lips matched the color of the chips that were in his mouth. So just then, I tap him out. He goes over here. State Gaming Commission is standing there, puts handcuffs on him. In the middle of the pit, in front of God and everybody. And then you would think that they would walk him off the floor. No. Randy, with the help of the Gaming Commission, walks him through every gaming area on the ship. So every dealer on the boat saw this guy in handcuffs with black lips. And the rest of the 5 years that I was working there, I never saw another theft from an employee. Okay? So about a year ago, I got a call that Randy had died. Now, Randy died, he had been in the gaming industry for a total of about 60 years. He retired and moved back to Las Vegas. He died about 2 years after that. When I got this call from a friend, I called a couple of other people, and I realized that in that original blackjack class, back in the day, 5 of us from that original class had gone on to be casino managers or higher, which is statistically impossible. Statistically impossible. Now, I tell this story on the evening of In Tune, because when you think of somebody who's a master at what they do, Randy, when he stepped foot on a casino floor, he knew where every chip was. He knew where every card was. He knew everything about every dealer, every floor supervisor, every surveillance officer, security guard walking his floor. That man was as much in tune with that casino floor as an artist is with his brush. And everything that I learned about the casino business that's worth knowing, I learned from Randy Pierce. Thank you.